Well, good morning, everybody, and we want to welcome everybody to our ABA Engineering Academy's September edition of the engineering webinar. This program and webinar is actually produced and hosted by the joint venture of the Alabama Broadcasters Association, the Georgia Broadcast Association, and the South Carolina Broadcast Association. We want to take a moment here to remind everybody to make sure that you keep your video and audio muted. If you're just joining in to watch us and listen to us today, that helps on clutter and also helps a little bit, I think, on the bandwidth as well. So we'll ask you to do that. If you have a question that you'd like to ask anybody that's on the panel or our special guest, you can use the chat feature of Zoom. Just click on chat and type the question in, and our participants will actually see those as well. The program is also sponsored by Max Connect Group. We want to thank them for their sponsorship, not only for the webinar, but also for all the things that we do with the Engineering Academy, our classes and webinars and emails that we send out, newsletters and all. So we want to thank them. If you're not familiar with Max Connect, contact them at maxconnect.com. They make a nice little unit that you can use for remotes and also STL, backup STLs and all. So I want to thank them for that. I want to bring in our special, well, not our special guest. Well, he is a special guest, I guess, Sir John George, who is actually our co-host for today. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. Did you get washed away with the rain you were talking about?
No, we've had our downpours. I think you had it much worse in Alabama than we have here, thank goodness. Kirk is still around, so we know that he survived the Tennessee monsoons, but this is getting to be more of a norm than exception to the rule. Good to be with you this morning. Larry, I'll mention one thing before we get started. If there are any SECC chair or committee people out there, the time is drawing near to get the forms completed for the new state plans all around. I think we still have till in the first of the year, but that's something you want to be on the lookout for and very responsible. You actually have to get a registration of on the new is it not LMS? I'm sorry, Larry, help me here. All the names run together with the FCC database.
You have to get an FRN number.
Yep, FRN. Thank you. And that's important. So we don't want anybody to be wasting any time and waiting around too long because time is drawing nigh. I do want to mention one thing coming up October the 23rd. Georgia Association of Broadcasters is going to have an in-person state conference, and they will have engineering seminars all day on Saturday the 23rd. Information is available on their website at gab.org. So be certain to hop in there, and we would love to have anybody from around the general area come visit. I know Wayne will be speaking. I'll be speaking. There'll be several other guests that day, and the engineering seminars will start right around 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. A luncheon will be included as well too, Larry. So something to keep in mind. That's kind of all I have.
Okay, yeah, the Alabama broadcast, the ABA's convention was actually postponed from its earlier date because of the COVID-19, and it's been moved to January the 22nd and 23rd, I believe. So, and as well, we'll have quite a few engineering seminars as well that particular day. So you can watch our newsletter. Speaking of the newsletters, let me real quickly mention this before we introduce our special guest. The ABA Engineering Academy actually produces two newsletters each week. We do one that goes out on Monday morning. It's called Monday Morning Coffee and Technical Notes, and that's for broadcast engineers. And if you are not getting that right now, just make sure that you send us an email and we'll be happy to put you on the list. We also started a few months ago one for pro audio. we discovered there's a lot of broadcast engineers that are actually involved in pro audio, either mixing sound at their local church or working at a concert venue or maybe at a recording studio. The studio. And so we started doing a newsletter for that. So either one of those, let us know if you're not on the mailing list, so we'll be happy to add you to the list. Well, it's time for our special guest today. And if I can get my slides to work here, my mouse is not wanting to work too well, but oh, here we go. We want to introduce our special guest. Most people are aware of Kirk Harnack. He's been around for a good while, and boy, he looks like somebody from the 60s in that picture there. I'm not sure where I got that picture, but we've got that in. But I asked Kurt if he would be with us because for a long time we've been talking about the engineers need to develop an attitude of being a self-taught and a lifelong learner because the technology is changing at just a tremendous rate. And so we asked Kurt if he would be with us and talk to us a little bit about something new that's out now that's helping you when you're building your new studios. And it's called virtual consoles. You no longer have to have a piece of equipment sitting right there with knobs and buttons and meters and all. You can actually do it virtual. So, Kirk, I'm going to turn the program over to you now.
Larry, got a quick question for you. I don't have the money to buy one, but I sure would like to buy a Tesla. I just think they're cool. But do you know why they're so expensive?
Why?
It's because they charge a lot.
Okay.
Sorry. Apologize. That's a heck of a way to get going. We were talking about the rain, and so I was kind of curious. Yesterday in Nashville, we had about 1.6 inches of rain, so I was curious about the records. I know that some places have gotten a lot of rain, some places south of Nashville. In Nashville, for the year, we've gotten about 48.5 inches of rain so far this year. The record is 56 inches of rain to this date, but that was back in 1882. That's the record high was set in 1882, and the record low for accumulated rainfall was only a few years earlier in 1871. So I guess my point there is things can change a lot in just a few years. The record low and the record high for accumulated rainfall to this date in Nashville occurred in 1871 for the low and 1882 for the high, and we're nowhere near that for this year. Although the highest rainfall in one particular day was just back in 2010 here in Nashville. So
it's been wet everywhere.
It's been wet everywhere. That's right. All right. Well, good morning and good day. Let's see. I'll have Larry, do we have any way to give away a prize during the meeting? Do you ever do that?
No, I haven't. We'll figure out something.
Well, if you want to figure out something, let me show you what the prize could be, because I'll supply the prize. I'll even ship it. It's this beautiful bag of Bucky beaver nuggets.
What in the world is that?
If you've never had a beaver nugget, you don't know what this is. This is like the safe version of crack for adults. It's totally legal, but it shouldn't be.
Don't tell John.
This is some good stuff. I bought this in Georgia at the newest Buc-ee's that they have there in Adairsville, Georgia. I noticed you have two Buc-ee's in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, I think there's one coming to Montgomery, if I'm not bad mistaken.
Might be. There's one in Leeds and one down in, I think it's Robertsville, between Mobile and somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
We hope to have one in South Carolina soon in the upstate. So
they're building them. You know, if you need gas, they have like 134 gas pumps. It's ridiculous. Man. And just a tip: if you're traveling with your pet, you like your dog, and you need to take him out to, for some doggy relief, they require you to pick up the doggy's relief. They have a sign out there, but if you don't have any bag or something to do that with, if you take him around behind the trash bin container fence in the back, then they won't see you.
Everybody make a note of that.
Ask me how I know. All right. Hey, let's get started. Let me share my screen. Good morning or hello, everybody. Glad you're here. Let's see if we can share this now with sound and with video. I'm Kirk Harnack, the Senior Solutions Consultant. I think that means I'm the oldest at TELUS Alliance. And we're going to see a virtual console. And of course, may ask, well, why would I want that? Why would I even need that? And we'll take you through some rationale here, and maybe it makes sense for you, and maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Well, we a number of people are using this around the world at this point, and we got a couple different ways to make a virtual audio console. You may have seen advertising in the trade magazines that looks like this, where we say mix anywhere on any device, and this ad seems a little bit unclear. People have asked us, well, are you actually mixing on your phone? How do you get the audio in and out of your phone? How do you get that audio in and out of your tablet? How can I be at a rest stop on a 4G hotspot and do my mixing from there? What does this all mean? And so that's what we're going to try to make clear here. You know, for decades, our audio console was the center of our operation. It was, I guess you could say, we were console-centric for years and years. In fact, we even, anybody remember this from the inside of, maybe you still have one of these, from the inside of an LPB console, here's where all your wiring went. And so it was very console-centric. You literally wired everything to your console. And even when we had newer consoles, this one looks like one from Radio Systems. We still wired everything to the console. Everything in this room is wired to the console. And even when we went to AES-EBU digital consoles, nothing really changed except the format of the audio that was on the wires. We still wired everything to the console. And that also made it difficult for us to have flexibility. But hey, back when we had employees 24/7 around the clock in the room, we didn't need much flexibility. It was the employee that had to be flexible, not so much the equipment. And so just as a graphic, a reminder, here's what we have done for decades. You just wire everything into the console. It was the center of everything. And sure, you may have had a router external from it where you could route something else to the transmitter, but still, you had a lot of things centered around the audio console. Well, one of the things about audio over IP technology, and it doesn't matter, of course, I speak from the Axia point of view because that's where I work, but whether you've got a Wheatstone WheatNet or a Ravenna system, maybe from Lavo, or an Axia LiveWire system, or a Dante-based system, you're still going to have a network-centric system. It doesn't have to be console-centric anymore. And so, yeah, I realize the graphic like this makes it look like, well, you've just replaced the console with the Ethernet switch. And yeah, we have. The Ethernet switch typically is cheaper than the console. You can also wire them redundantly for automatic failover. There's some reasons why network-centric isn't really the same or the same liabilities as you'd have with a console-centric situation. Some stations have expressed that they have a problem. They need to mix, of course, audio for on-air production voice tracking, but they may need an extra studio for voice tracking or for an HD2 or HD3 service or for on-demand or maybe for holidays, or maybe they have a problem. They've gone out and they've sold 2 high school football games, but they both occur at the same time. And so you're going to put, well, back in my day with AM stereo, we even threatened to put one on the left channel and one on the right channel, but that wouldn't have worked for some folks. So bottom line is, the point is, there's times when you need to do some extra mixing, and it would be great if we could just add something to the network or the system we already have instead of having to start from scratch and build something new. Now we take that notion, that idea of a problem, and we're looking for a solution, and we mix that with a survey that was recently done in England. Actually, it's probably been 3 years ago, where Broadcast Bionics, which is a partner of Telos Alliance, they're a system integrator and software company in England. They went and they surveyed air talent in Europe, and they asked them what they'd like to see in the studio of the future. Do you want a different audio console, bigger or smaller? Or do you want more buttons and knobs or fewer buttons and knobs? And they said nope to none of that. They said, we just really want more cushions and daylight. So I think they weren't really wanting to be concerned with the things that we engineers concern ourselves with. They really wanted to have a good time. So here's some video of people having a good time in the studio. And yes, they all have headphones and they're all talking into microphones, but the talent would really rather focus on the content and not have to worry about turning some knobs or pushing some buttons. There's exceptions to that, sure, but a lot of these creative types, they would rather it just work. They'd rather just go in there and do something pretty simple and easy and have it just all mixed together and work. Well, we understood cushions and daylight to mean fewer buttons and knobs, maybe almost no buttons and knobs if we could get away with it. And on our way to that journey, we thought about, well, what if we could just let people mix their show on a device they already have, something that they're already familiar with? And of course, what if mixing that show didn't depend on them having the app up on the screen? They could mix something together and then they could minimize that and do something else on their device. And when it came time to make a transition or a change, they could just bring it back up. And what if they actually didn't have to install any software? What if they could actually just bring it up in a browser? Wouldn't that be cool? And browser technology certainly has advanced to the point where technologically this is entirely possible with basically any device nowadays that has an HTML5 type of browser. So we got to work on making an audio console that had a built-in web server and used technologies like HTML5, but also used WebSockets to provide very fast updates on the screen. So it looked like it was an app. It looked like, in fact, about like you were, at a console. So you had the instantaneous visual cues as to what was going on. And then we thought about, okay, how would we deliver such a product? And we came up with a couple different ways to do it. This is the Axia IQ-S, and we call it a virtual audio mixing console. And at the moment, we make this available in a couple of different formats. One is a piece of hardware, and I'll show you a video shortly about installing that. And the other one is some software. And the software is in a format that is unfamiliar to a lot of us. I just became familiar with it probably 9 months, maybe a year ago, and it's called a Docker container. It's containerized software. It's different than a Windows app. It's different than a Mac or a Linux app. It's different than a service that runs. It is, and it's different than a virtual machine. It's a container, and apparently containers are becoming very, very popular in the IT world for reliably executing microservices. So if you pay somebody with PayPal today, you're using a number of containers along the way, each one doing something and handing it off to the next container. So we're going to look at how that works. In fact, I'm going to show you a video of my colleague Milos Nemchik. That's his name, Milos Nemchik, former broadcast engineer for Clear Channel out in California, and he's going to install one for us in pretty short order. Now, it doesn't matter which of these formats that a manager or a station chooses, both of them work the same in terms of being able to browse into them and get the browser up and do your mixing on the browser with a touch screen or a mouse. Of course, all the audio, it has to be in the audio over IP format. These whether it's hardware or software, there's no audio inputs and outputs per se. There's just a network connection, and that network connection can subscribe to audio sources on the network and produce new audio sources, new mixes on the network program or monitors for headphones and speakers and so forth. So moving on, this is one way that my colleagues at Telos decided to supply this. We make this little hardware engine. We call it the AE1000. That actually means Application Engine 1000 because there's things that we're doing with it besides audio. And there's the front and the back of it. In the video, I'll show you a bit more of it. We also make it available as containerized software. And we'll look at containers in just a minute more fully. But a container, basically, you've got your bare metal, so to speak, that it's running on. And by the way, I'm showing an older Dell server there. Doesn't have to be a server. I actually, just for fun, tried this on literally I bought for $125. I bought a used Dell workstation bought it off Walmart.com. Just really trying to hit the least common denominator here, and put Linux on it, and then ran the script that Telos supplies to install the Docker runtime engine and then the Docker container that has IQS, the console on it, and it works fine. I've got an audio console for literally $125 worth of hardware. We do charge for the software. I wish that could be free, but it's not. We have to charge for that. All right. So the features, just to let you know what's, okay, well, how basic a console is this? Is this a Behringer or is this an actual broadcast console? Well, as I mentioned, it's browser-based. You can access it from any device with a browser. Anywhere from 4 to 24 faders. It has 4 program buses, plus, in addition to that, it's got a record bus and a telco bus and, of course, preview. Automatic mix minus on every single fader. That's pretty standard in the industry these days for software-defined consoles. Plus talkback to any source that has a path back to it. Auto mix mic balancing, so you can just instead of having to ride gain on faders, you can put your mics in an auto mix and give weighting to maybe the host, and that auto mix works great from there. You can do mic processing, basic downward expansion, compression, and de-essing. And then 3-band EQ in stereo for any source that wants that. There's a channel input confidence meter on every single fader right next to the fader itself. I almost said physical, didn't I? Right next to the virtual fader, there's confidence meters. This console works with Axia Pathfinder software. That's our orchestration software. So you can change routes. You can change what's on a fader, for example. It does support AES67 and SMPTE ST2110-30, so those are standards that are coming along, and I'm sure you've heard of them. It also does LiveWire plus AES67, and it can receive any LiveWire source and put out LiveWire. There's also a profile context-sensitive soft key on each fader that you can program to do different things, like start the next event or whatever. So again, it offers audio mixing without a physical surface. You can do a temporary studio anywhere. Home studios don't need a purpose-built mixer because you're actually controlling something elsewhere. Small studios, desks, even mobile. And here's kind of cool. You can have multiple simultaneous users, and they all see faders move up and down. So if Billy Bob's at his house and Jolene's at her house, Jolene moves a fader up and down. It instantly reflects on Billy Bob's view of it as well. So here's IQS at a few existing studios. This is a control room at one of my stations in Mississippi. And this is Big V, and we just installed IQS there to play with it and see what else we could do. We didn't have an immediate need for it, but I do get a discount, so we put it in there. This is at our station in Cleveland, Mississippi. That's our station manager, Jim Polliard, and he's if we ever need to replace the physical console in there, we're going to definitely do it with this, and we'll just buy a $350 Dell touchscreen, a big touchscreen, and we'll have a beautiful console there. You can also mix from your desk. This obviously is not a control room. This is this guy's desk, it just ties into the Axia network, and off you go. You can mix things that way. Let's see. Hard to take a poll, so let me skip past the poll. Let's review real quickly how an Aoip network works, in case you don't happen to have one. You start out with something like an Ethernet switch, and luckily, since we're dealing with packets, the Ethernet switch does all the heavy lifting, so you don't have to. And the good news about this is, we can buy an Ethernet switch new for a couple or $3,000 or $1,000. You can buy these used all day long. I finally had one fail. I had one here at my office. It was used when I bought it, and I've had it for about 6 years, and it failed a couple weeks ago. And so I just bought a couple of replacements. I bought 2 off of eBay for, I want to say they were about $119 each for a fader, for a switch like this. And so I'll have one main, one backup. To this, you can add, input-output devices. And I'm showing here Axia X nodes. So these convert packets into audio and audio into packets. So to this, you might hook up on an audio output, hook up some speakers to that. You can also just tie into the network some mic processing. Now that black faced box in the bottom left there, you notice I don't go through any audio input-output device. This is the Voco 8, which is has LiveWire available in it. So you just plug it to the network, and now you got 8 mic processors just by hanging this on the network. And there's an automation PC. We don't need a sound card anymore. We can just run an Axia IP audio driver and add a second network interface if we want to have 2 of them, and put that on the LiveWire Axia audio over IP network. And so now we're playing perfect ones and zeros from the hard drive onto the network, and wherever we want to subscribe to this, we can subscribe to it, like maybe on an audio console. So here's an audio console, split frame, and this is just the control surface. There's actually no audio in that whatsoever. So where's the audio? Well, we add a mixing engine to this. So the mix engine takes direction from the surface. Hey, subscribe to this, subscribe to that, mix them together at these levels, and create an output and call it program 1. Or now let's listen to program 1. So you put that in the control room monitor feed, for example. So that's how most audio over IP consoles work. You have a mixing engine, and typically that is going to be separate from the mixing surface itself. And the surface, they can be in different rooms, obviously. Typically the mixing engine would go in a rack room, especially if it's a noisy mixing engine with some fans, and the surface doesn't make any noise. Now, a few years ago, my colleagues came out with this. It's an IQX console. The mixing engine is actually built into this. Back then we figured out how we could easily do that with a low power budget and make that all work. So we do have one console that has the mixing engine actually built into it. And if you want some local input-output, there's a second network interface on the bottom of that console. You can just add a local node, and like here you have a mic node, which has the mic pre's built into it, and run your mic into that. Then the console itself is able to do the mic processing right there in the console. So that's a way to gain a bunch of functionality just by hanging something additional onto the network. Let's say you had automation and satellite feeds and what have you on the network already. Well, you just add an IQX, and now you're mixing some more. By the way, that IQX console now has an option available. You can remote control it the same way that you remote control the IQS console that we're about to see. Okay, so let's swap something out here. What am I going to do? We could take away that physical console, and we can replace it. Replace it with some software. So a few years ago, my colleagues wrote this thing called Soft Surface, and this can either control an existing console or actually take the place of one. And so you can do some mixing on that. A lot of folks through this pandemic, they got copies of Soft Surface and remoted their stations that way. There's other third-party software available, and this is one of the cool things about audio over IP. It's not so difficult to have third-party people write software for it. So this is called IP Tablet. It's from a group out of France, and it's highly customizable. I mean, so much it'll make your head spin, the customization available. And then there's this product, which is our own Pathfinder, which is a kind of orchestration software to look after everything in the plant. But you can also build custom panels of more simple faders and so forth. So folks have used this in a lot of different ways. They've used these Pathfinder panels, very customizable. Now you could add. I just added that AE1000 mix engine onto the network right there, and to control it, we can just hook up a tablet to the network and browse over to it. Of course, we could browse from any computer and browse into that mixing engine and control a mix that way. We could also get rid of a bunch of stuff and just put some AE1000 engines in there running the IQS software. And I'm showing a laptop that's wired in, but remember the control of the mix engine. There's no live wire involved with just controlling and mixing and looking at the meters. So we could even be on Wi-Fi if we wanted to with our external devices. They could even be remote. They could even be off-site, and they would work fine in terms of control of the mix. Now, what if we then said, you know what, I don't want to buy all that hardware. Kirk, you mentioned earlier that this IQS mixing stuff is available as a Docker container. So that would look more like this. You would replace those hardware engines with perhaps a server platform, and put in a host operating system, a version of Linux. So our script is written to install automatically on Ubuntu. So you can do that, and then run the Docker runtime engine in there, and then run a number of instances of IQS. Here at my lab, I have installed and run 6 IQSs on a single off-lease Dell server. I think I paid $600 for the Dell server. Ubuntu was free. The IQS software is free to try, we inject some nasty noises that you wouldn't want to put on the air if you don't license it, but you can at least you can try it out absolutely for free. So again, control with any modern browser, and that's what you have on your browser. You can have anywhere from 4 faders to 24 faders. If you get 24 faders, you better get a widescreen monitor, because there's a certain aspect ratio that the software, or that the browser expects, or the software that's running in the browser expects. So anyway, in that particular aspect there, 9 was the number of faders that could fit on the screen. So again, a couple of deployment options: hardware, the AE1000 with the IQS pre-installed, or the containerized software. And then there's some different ways to buy it. The hardware, of course, is a buyout, and the software container is either buyout or subscription. But I'm not going to delve into that right now. Right now, we're going to watch a video about 6 minutes long about how this works and how to set it up. This is the hardware version, and right after this, we're going to look at actually installing this on a server. So here we go. Hi, it's Kirk Harnack to tell you about how you can get the IQS Virtual Audio Console pre-installed on this hardware. This hardware is the Telos Alliance AE1000. AE stands for Application Engine 1000. When you order the AE1000 with the IQS software pre-installed, what you get is this diminutive box. Of course, 19 inches rack width, only 1 rack unit tall, and look, it's only 4 inches from front to back. By the time you add power and Ethernet connectors, it's still under 6 inches from front to back. There's no fan in it. It doesn't even run very warm, but it's amazingly powerful. You can put up to a 24 fader IQS virtual audio console in here. That's right. Plus, it has extra buses on it, all the buses you'd need, program 1, 2, 3, and 4. It has a recording bus. It has a telco bus. It has an offline bus, and it also does audio processing. It will process your microphones, of course, for downward expansion, compression, and de-essing. Plus, it has stereo EQ available, 3-band parametric EQ for each of the inputs if you want that. There's also a monitor section and a headphone section and a preview monitor as well, plus a studio monitor section. All the things that normally come with an IQ console are available in this IQS software virtual console on the AE1000 platform. Let's hook it up. So once we have the AE1000 with the IQS software installed, we can hook it up to power and Ethernet. I've got this Ethernet cable here already connected to my Axia network here in the office, and I'll take the power coming from the 12-volt power supply. Now this is a locking connection here, so it screws on, won't come off at all. And now the power indicator comes on. Once it's up and running, you can browse into the unit using the default factory IP address, which is 192.168.2.29. Just set your computer to the same LAN address and browse right into it. From that point, you can set the IP address to what will be compatible with your own internal Axia Livewire or AES67 network. Now that you've set the IP address, just browse to that address. In my system, it's 10.216.0.29. And you're challenged with a login. The default is user with no password. Now, the next thing we'll want to do is set up some sources and some shows. So we can go to sources, and I've already set up a number of sources that exist on my network here at my office, including a host mic, a computer that can play audio for me, the output of my Omni 11, and some audio receivers that exist in my rack room, plus my Zip 1 and some audio from my Zipstream hardware. We'll also want to set up a show to bring up. And so I've brought up one called IQS Demo. And in this one, I've assigned the host mic to come into all 4 program buses. I've also brought in some tuners, my Tivoli FM tuner, a couple other receivers that I have, Zip 1, even the Omni 11 comes up. And I don't have any sources on any of the rest of the faders. I guess I didn't need all those faders, did I? The IQS can also be used with Telos phone systems, and you would set that up here. There's also a monitor section, so you can decide what you're going to monitor by default when you load the profile. And you can also send the preview into the rest of the monitor feed if you like. You can also set up which external inputs will come up when you bring this profile up. All the usual selections that exist for an Axia IQ console also exist in the Axia IQ-S console. Now we've selected that. The IQ-S demo profile is active. So let's go ahead and look at the outputs now. I've turned on some outputs, program 1, 2, 3, and 4 on my network. You can choose multicast or SIP unicast. SIP unicast is useful if you are in a server environment in a public cloud space, especially where multicast isn't allowed. You can also give it a channel IP address, channel address for Livewire, or an IP address for AES67. And you can choose what type of payload it is, standard stereo or AES67. Okay, we've seen enough setup. Let's go see what it looks like when we bring the Surface up. So I'll click on Surface, and it's connecting, synchronizing the state of the console, and oh my goodness, there we are. Let's look at the IQ-S Virtual Audio Console in operation here. I've got a Microsoft Surface computer that's being used to access this IQ-S software running on the AE1000, and it's got a touchscreen. I also have a large monitor here so you can see it more easily. Of course, a large touchscreen monitor would work just as well too. I'm going to bring the monitor volume up, and you can hear the monitor come right up. I got 4 different radio stations running here on these 4 different faders in the 4 different program buses. And you can see I can switch, watch it, I can switch to different program buses and hear these different radio stations.
1, 2, 8.
I can bring this one up and down, for example, all the way down, all the way up. I'm just touching the touchscreen. I can also double tap to bring it right up to 0 dB if that's a quicker way to do it. Again, you can grab anywhere on the orange bar here to turn this up and down. There's an example. You can turn it off, of course, turn it back on. You can also use the mouse to do the same thing. I'll show you over here. Turn it off and turn it back on. We can also put something in preview. There, we've put that in preview. I've got preview mixed in with the monitor. We can turn the preview level up and down separately, just like that. Take it out of preview here. And we can also mute the microphone, mute the speakers by turning the microphone on like that. And in fact, we'll turn off all of this. And if I just talk, I have the microphone, this microphone right here, through here on the Axia network, and you can see my voice coming through the monitors as well. So lots of options here, and it works just like just like your regular console does, like any IQ console does. The IQ-S Virtual Audio Console running right here on the AE1000. Good, Kirk. Good job. All right. Now, as far as deploying software, there's a couple different ways to deploy software, for rigorous use. And one would be on a virtual machine. And a lot of you are probably familiar with deploying software as virtual machines. And in fact, Telos has a couple of products that do come as virtual machines. One of them is Pathfinder. But Docker really appears to be the future of this kind of software, containerized software. It doesn't take up nearly as much space or resources. You can really dedicate a CPU, a core, to a container's job. And so it's becoming a real industry standard. Microservices is a lot of what containers do. Believe it or not, we've taken an audio console and kind of called that a microservice and made it run in a software container. Google, Amazon, Visa, PayPal, MetLife, for example, they're all using containerized software to a very large extent. Docker is a brand name. Docker was the organization that came up with a lot of the initial specs. And so when you say Docker, you really mean containerized software. I guess there's probably some people in the industry who don't want to necessarily tie themselves to Docker. So we say our software is containerized software, and it's Docker compatible or Docker compliant software. Let us go right into this interview. This is my colleague, Milos Nemchik. He's going to show us how to, in really just a few minutes here, how to take a computer that already has Ubuntu on it, and through the command line, he's going to install an audio console. Let's watch. Hey, it's Kirk Harnack. I'm here with Milos Nemchik, who's the project manager for IQ-S, or product manager. Hi, Milos. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Kirk.
So one of the ways that you can have IQ-S, the audio console that is remotely accessible with a browser, is by running it as not quite a virtual machine. It's running as a software container on what kind of platform?
On a Linux machine.
Okay, Linux machine. So if you would just take us through this, we're going to show a screen here, and you can tell us how this process is working. Here we go.
Right, so I'm at a prompt for logging into the Linux machine, and I type in my username, my password, and now I've got access to it, and I'm going to zip on over to our online documentation, and I'm clicking on the Docker container documentation, and because I've already pre-read that, I know exactly where I need to go, but it's suggested to read all this material. What I'm scanning for is the Docker setup, and midway through the page is a string of text that I want to copy, and I'm copying it there.
And that is a script, a single line script, right?
Single line script, so I've pasted it into my prompt, and I hit enter, and now it's asking for my super user password, and then it proceeds, and it's checking various elements in the Linux machine to see that they're there, and if they're not, it installs them. And this just takes a few seconds. Yeah,
folks who've installed programs with Linux before, they'll recognize this process, right?
I think so. It's very familiar, yes.
Yeah.
And so it's checking for example, like the Docker engine, if other utilities that we like to use are present. And again, if it's not there, it tells you that it's there or not there. And if it's not there, it installs it. And so now it's asking for the login to our repository, our online repository.
Okay.
What happens to be at quay.io. And so I'm giving my username and my password for my access. And so
one prerequisite is that a person would already need to have an account with quay.io to get this.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it's asking for a network setting, Telos Mac VLAN, which I'm not deploying in this example here because I'm just doing a single instance of IQS. And so then it asks me what product I want to install, and I'm type 1, which is the IQX console. And it's giving me questions for certain things like the name of the instance. I just typed in XYZ as a call letter. So no, I'm done with the script. That's it. It did everything. And now the Linux machine is a certain IP address, which I happen to know. And I'm going to type that into the URL. And it's just a 101.49. And there it is. There's IQS. And first thing is to log into the IQS products. Let's create a source profile, which allows me to ingest audio from the network into the console. And my favorite generic Muzak source profile, I'm typing in Muzak, and I'm going to pick an audio source in my test environment here. And program 1, or the monitor section of the AE1000, which we're also talking about. And all the defaults are good. I'm going to also configure an output.
Okay.
So I can hear the audio without any output, right? So in this case, I'm just going to enable the monitor output. I'm going to give it a LiveWire channel number, enable it, and hit apply. And now my monitor section of the IQS is in my network, and I can pull it up in my headphones or speakers. And here I'm on the user interface. I've pulled Muzak up. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to assign it to program 1.
Look at that.
Don't forget to turn the monitor on. That was the last bit. And now I can listen to Muzak as I read the rest of the online documentation and figure out how to make this product work.
Oh, my goodness. So, all right. So what we just saw, folks, was not a complete tutorial on how to install IQS in a Docker environment, a software container environment. What we saw was that you can do it. If you have all the prerequisite information, you can do it quickly. There is some prerequisite information to do, including getting an account with quay.io, which is our repository for the software that you get it from. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And then you just made a very simple console. After the software was installed and running, right? Now we're going to access it with an HTML with a browser. And you established one source, and you established one output. Obviously, you got to have one in, one out to see what you're doing, and then you browsed to the console, and there you had it.
Now, one thing we did not cover in that video was the licensing. It does require a license, and so without the license, what I received was a 4-channel mixer, fully functional, except we have tones that are generated every, I forget the time period, say 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the license process, you would install the license server, get a lock request phase, send that to Telos. Telos will give you the key, and away you go.
So it looks like, honestly, if you have the prerequisite stuff available, you have a Linux machine ready to go, and you can go ahead and install the software, and you have your license ready. You went from start to finish there in, I think it was just under 4 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Milos, thank you for the demonstration. Again, not a complete tutorial. We'll have other resources for the more complete tutorials, but I wanted to show folks that it can be done. You just installed an audio console.
Yeah, in 4 minutes.
In 4 minutes. Whoever thought we'd be doing that? Milos Nemchik, product manager for Axia. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kirk.
All right. So let's see. Probably not a good way to take a poll here. One thing you can do is have this kind of setup on premises. So you could add this console functionality right in your existing radio station. If you're on premise and you've got LiveWire on premise, obviously, then getting monitoring is going to be easier. At the moment, the IQS software does not offer any audio connectivity through the browser. This is kind of a crawl, walk, run scenario, and so IQS you can provide. We make codecs, so you can get audio connectivity elsewise, and for in our beta testing with the audio connectivity, it's done using WebRTC technology. But anyway, on premises could be pretty easy because you already have the availability of LiveWire locally, and you can run speakers and microphones locally through an Xnode, for example. If you want to do this off-site, at the moment you would use some kind of codec. It could be a software codec, could be a hardware codec. It doesn't have to be from Telos. It could be from one of the other companies that does that. But you could have coded audio to go outside over WAN, internet, or VPN. And then some deployment options, again, either on-premise or some broadcasters have a private data center somewhere, or you can do public cloud. This has been fully tested, for example, in AWS, Amazon Web Services, and it does function there just fine. You've got one thing to think about is if you're using public cloud, they do charge for data ingress and egress. And so, for example, there are some large broadcasters who are absolutely doing this in the cloud, but they don't keep them up 24/7. If they have a whole bunch of ball games to produce on a weekend, then they crank them all up. They do their ball games and they shut them back down, so they don't need to have audio ingress and egress for the whole time. One more quick little video here, and this I want to demonstrate how you can control this from multiple places at the same time. This was kind of fun, cranking up all this in my office. Here we go. The Axia IQS Virtual Audio Console can be accessed from more than one browser at a time. Here we're accessing it with one browser on a computer and a second browser on the same computer and another browser on a second computer. Then across the office, we're accessing it with 3 more browsers on 2 more computers over there. And what's cool is they all track together, so you can work together. Watch, I'll move this one up and down, and on another computer elsewhere on the network, it also moves up and down really fast. So people can work from anywhere and collaborate together with IQS. All right. So as we go forward with the possibility of software models, and I know that within Telos, we're wherever possible, we're committed to creating both a hardware version of some broadcast piece of equipment and a software version of the same functionality from broadcast piece of equipment. Don't know if that'll forever be the case, but for now, that seems to be the business model that people like to have that choice. Not everybody's ready to put their radio station in Docker containers. I get that. We get that. So you have a choice. And if you choose software, we're helping people to have the choice of either buying it out or subscribing to it. And buyout would be CapEx dollars, and subscribing would be OpEx dollars. And just depending on what month it is, or what your shareholders are saying, or what the CFO wants to do, you have that choice there of CapEx or OpEx. Just so you be aware, we're offering something called Telos Care Plus. That some broadcasters. And I had never experienced this before until I went to a TV station a few years ago and put in a big kind of a play-by-play system for tornado coverage. in Oklahoma, actually, and nobody at the TV station wanted to run point on anything I was installing. They said, "No, we want you to take care of it," and that was an eye opener for me. And apparently, that's becoming the case with a lot of different pieces of equipment. Not as much in radio, but certainly in television, and so that's offered in the form of TelosCare Plus with a bunch of business advantages and guarantees and so forth. So the key takeaways here: it's touchscreen optimized audio mixer is what IQS is, with the GUI in your browser. Any device with a browser works fine. I've done this on a phone. Not that it's the most convenient thing in the world to touch your phone and run your volumes up and down, but you can, and it works with a touchscreen or with a mouse, and available in a couple different formats to deploy. And that, friends, is our presentation.
Kurt, talk a little bit about if you're running a station on one of these systems from a remote location and your internet fails, what happens? What kind of fail-safe is there built into it?
Well, if your ability to control remotely fails, then the console it'll keep mixing exactly the same thing that it was mixing. So if you had your mic on, oh woe unto you. But if you had if you had the automation system just potted up and that's when your internet went out, well then the automation will just stay on the air. But that's really a danger no matter whether you're using this kind of mixer or whether you're remote with any kind of possibility. Even if you're voice tracking, if your internet fails, then you can't voice track anymore.
Yeah, that's true. This sort of reminds me of the stuff that people are doing now in the pro audio field, because just about all the mix consoles now, Presonus and SSL and Digico and Allen and Heath, all have a way that you can operate it from an iPad, or they even have, and you may have seen this, they have set up where each individual performer that's on the stage can control his or her monitor mix actually from an iPhone. You just assign them whatever feed is feeding their in-ear or wedge monitor, and they can sit up there and do their own mix. So this type of technology is really catching on and getting out in every type of field, I think.
Yeah, I've certainly seen those stage systems, and even it's years ago seen people mixing from sitting out in the audience. It's a little bit different scenario than for broadcast. I'm not going to say that designing that kind of system is easier. I'm not saying that it is, but there is certainly a bigger. The broadcast industry is kind of small compared to the pro audio industry. So Behringer and others have certainly been able to sell tens of thousands of those systems before broadcast can even get started.
That's exactly right. So I appreciate the information. Anybody got any questions for Kirk? Just go ahead and type it into the chat room. I don't see anything popping up right now, but we really appreciate the information. Is this is all available now, or?
Yes, it is. IQS is being sold or subscribed to right now. There are quite a few of them deployed right now. I think a lot of them are at just several large broadcasters that are working with this. People say, "Well, okay, Kirk, that I can see it working in the broadcast facility, but I need to monitor externally." And believe me, that's being worked on hot and heavy. And there's proofs of concept already out there for remote monitoring, and then also for remote contribution. So that's certainly coming.
You mentioned in the demo and in the conversation there about AES-67. For those that are not familiar with AES-67, that's the type where you can actually use another company's equipment that allows it to talk back and forth. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, like so many things, companies invent their own system in a bit of a vacuum or a silo. Years ago, Telos, when we invented Livewire, and at the time that we invented Livewire, there was only CobraNet and EtherSound available, and those were at the time were not at all appropriate for broadcast. They way too much latency, and they weren't routable. They may be now. I haven't kept up, but anyway, so we had to invent something. We invented Livewire, and we offered Livewire to other industry players, but of course, competitors often don't want to, use the same tech that their competitors using. So that's why we have WheatNet, and that's why we have Ravenna. And these different players, and also Dante got invented at roughly the same time, and none of them were compatible with each other. And so I know to a large extent it was Steve Church who worked a lot with the AES to say, let's do a standard. And Telos Alliance was a founding member of the X1, I think it was the X1, I forget the name of which number it was. But anyway, the working group that came up with the AES 67 standard. So AES 67 is a set of standards where there's interoperability amongst all the different players that participate. I must say it's not necessarily as convenient. People say, what's the difference between Livewire and AES 67? So, well, AES 67 involves a lot of typing. So with most of the other stuff, if you're in a WheatNet facility, it's pretty much click, 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 and make your routes. Same thing with Livewire, click, click, click. It's really convenient. Make your routes. AES 67, it's copy paste. Ooh, fix the semicolon. That still doesn't work. Let's fix that. Oh, now it works. Okay, and it'll just take you longer with AES 67. So that's why we recommend. Hey, you can build a whole facility with Livewire, but you may want to buy some Genelec speakers that speak AES 67. Well, you're going to have a little copy paste and maybe a little bit of typing to do. But within, if you don't know what you're doing, an hour later, you'll have the speakers working. If you know what you're doing, 2-3 minutes later, you'll have the speakers working.
A couple of questions came up on the chat room. One was, what is the basic cost of the system? And the second one was, how do you get a free trial? Yeah.
So that, first of all, I should preface this. If you are unfamiliar with either Linux or Docker container technology, I promise you are going to stub your toe on this. It will probably not work for you the first time. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, but what I'm saying is don't be discouraged by, hey, I followed their directions and it didn't work. Well, actually, if you're like me, chances are you didn't actually follow the directions. You skipped a step somewhere, or you assumed something you shouldn't have. That seems to be the case a lot. And I realize that broadcast engineers, including myself, don't know very much, if anything, about Docker containerized software technology. We get that. There's plenty of tutorials out there, but I tell you what, those tutorials cover a huge scope, and I'm not sure I could sit through 4 hours of tutorials. So your friends at Telos Alliance are putting together a multimedia production that is a tutorial on how to install our stuff, how to install IQS and how to install our phone system, VXS, and other containers that'll come along. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is if you want something to use on the air and you want it soon, I would consider getting that little appliance, that AE1000, and we pre-install the IQS on there for you, and it's just ready to go when you get it. That setup, the AE1000, look, I don't have the price list in front of me. I want to say it's about $1,500 or $1,600 for the hardware, and then the software for the basic 4-fader console is about another $1,400-$1,500 or so, and then it's another, I forget if it's $600 or $800 for every additional 4 faders. So you could have a 4-fader console with that AE1000 for roughly $3,000 list price, less than that at street price, and then you can add more faders to it up to 24 for a few $100s per pack of 4. Now the software itself, again, $1,400-$1,500. It's in that range for a 4-fader console that you can install yourself. The question is, where can we get the trial version? It is on our website, the instructions to get to it. I'm sorry, I don't have a link right here right now for you, but if you look around, if you go to IQS on our website and then you go to, I think maybe the quick start, it'll lead you to our help docs section of our website. By the way, if you have any Telos Omnia or Axia gear, you're welcome to call support, but we've got this new support thing, support.telosalliance.com, and you just type a plain language question into it, and there's a pretty good chance that it's been asked and we've answered it, and there's a whole sheet, there's a whole page on it. For example, some people noticed, this is probably 3 years ago, some people noticed that the newest version, 3 years ago, of Google Chrome was producing really ugly looking web pages on some of our equipment. And this was, of course, due to a change in Google Chrome, where they started doing this prefetch thing that didn't shuck and jive with our web server that we have in some of our products. And so it's a real, if you search for that, or if you talk to our support, we'll just send you the link. There's a little setting in Google Chrome that just fixes that. It's one little switch, but it's of course way down in there. So that's the kind of thing that this help docs has. So in the help docs, there's complete instructions on how to make sure that you've got the right version of Ubuntu in there. And I realize if you know Linux, not everybody's an Ubuntu fan. I get it. We had to pick something because every version of Linux has files in different places, and that's the beauty of standards. There are so many of them. So if we were going to write a script that was going to automatically install this for you, the Docker engine and the containers, we had to pick something. And so Ubuntu, either the desktop version or the command line server version, either one's fine. And you install the script like Milos did, copy paste the script, and a few minutes later you've got a working console. So the trial version is thanks for the MSRP. Oh, there we go. Somebody put the AE 1000 is $15.95. The 4-channel software is that's the 4-channel expansion pack is $650. The IQS software itself is pretty close to the AE 1000 cost, maybe $100 plus or minus, and then expansion for faders are probably $650. So,
Okay.
Hope that answers the question. A lot of folks use GitHub as a repository. You may have heard of GitHub. We used GitHub for a while, and then we found out what GitHub was costing us. Every time somebody did a free trial, it cost us. So we went to Quay.io, which costs us a lot less. So you have to make an account with Quay.io, which is now owned by Red Hat. So just a couple heads up there.
Okay. Kurt, we really appreciate your time and
Yeah.
all the information. I'm sure that if anybody needs any more information, they can contact you or tell us directly.
Good. Thanks for everybody's participation. Appreciate it very much.
All righty. So what we need to do here is just close a few things here and talk about real quickly. Our next webinar will be on October the 19th. That's the third Tuesday. That's when we run our webinars is the third Tuesday of every month. So the next one in October will be on the 19th.
No.
We want to thank you for watching. Huh?
I'm serious about giving this away. And if you've never had these before, friends, you'll either thank me or you'll hate me. Because if you like them, the whole bag will be gone from your table in minutes, because and these are no good for you. There's not an ingredient in here that's any good for you. So just know lots of palm kernel oil, lots of sugar, lots of cornstarch and stuff. What these are, it's like Cheetos with no cheese. So it's the corn puff, and then they're coated with this incredibly addictive solution of sugar and caramel, and oh god, they're just incredible.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is take all the people that's on the call and put them in a pot and roll them up and then pull one out, and then I'll get you the information to send it to
and
them.
I'll pop it in the mail and pop it right to somebody, and
Okay,
you'll love
then,
me or hate me.
I'm not sure, with all the COVID, whether they'll be able to go to the hospital after they eat it or not. So
Try to pace yourself. Pace yourself.
That's right. Thanks again, Kirk.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. If you want a copy of our newsletters, both the radio newsletter that comes out on Mondays and the pro audio that comes out on Wednesday, there's the address. Just send an email to lwilkins@al-ba.com, and we will be glad to put you on the mailing list. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you in October.